Board members, colleagues, administrators, and students. Ever since the news of the hiring of Mrs. Jones as our new Director of Compliance was announced to our stakeholders, our district has been the subject of some of the most negative public scrutiny in its recent memory. Chancellor Burke, Vice Chancellor Hampton, President Blumenthal, and trustees. I know that you all are fully aware of the Faculty Association's position in general and my sentiments in particular about this most unsettling, controversial hiring decision. I have clearly registered the Faculty Association's strongest and steadfast opposition to Mrs. Jones' hiring, not so much because of the specific incident in MONSAC, but mostly because there were no faculty in general and no faculty association representative in particular invited to participate in the hiring process of one of the most critical administrative positions in our district, a position responsible for upholding massive and complicated federal and state laws in order to safeguard, among other things, the sexual safety of all our stakeholders. The Faculty Association has long held the belief that a tremendous amount of sophistication, best practices, tireless advocacy, skill, and vigilance are required of the Office of Compliance Director. The new reality all higher education institutions are facing is that they must have people in all of the compliance positions that actually know the law front and back, inside and out, with the sophistication of a lawyer and the compassion and integrity of a top-notch student advocate and community builder. This position is dead serious, and RCCD stakeholders expected nothing but the highest standards and seriousness from our Department of Human Resources, our Chancellor, and our Board of Trustees in hiring for this position. Needless to say, the process that followed did not meet the Faculty Association expectations of an inclusive hiring process. If there is any silver lining surrounding this most unsettling hiring process, it is that back and forth discussions between the district and the association have brought us to a point where we are now in the process of crafting a new board policy on administrative hiring procedures, so the grave hiring mistakes we have encountered in this case will never be repeated in our district ever again. But tonight I'm not here to vent and rehash the Faculty Association disagreement with the Chancellor and the Board on the hiring process of our Director of Compliances. I believe I've clearly registered our position on this matter, and we have to simply agree to disagree and hold the Chancellor and the Board accountable for any negative outcomes this controversial hiring might have in store for our district. As we all know, Ms. Jones and her former employer, MONSAC, are currently the subject of a lawsuit by Ms. Musavi. The Faculty Association anxiously waits the outcome of that litigation effort, and rest assured that we will demand the immediate departure of Mrs. Jones from our district if the decision in that case indeed implicates her personally in any violation of Mrs. Musavi's civil rights. Tonight, I would like to speak on a couple of other important issues that have been brought to the spotlight as part of the fallout of Mrs. Jones' hiring. One issue is the treatment of students who have dared to publicly register their opposition to this hiring. For weeks now, our students have been publicly registering their outrage, dismay, anger, and frustration about this controversial hiring decision. We have all witnessed some passionate speeches by former MONSAC student, Ms. Arafa Musavi, and her supporters who claim that she suffered a grave injustice by Mrs. Jones in her role as MONSAC Compliance Director. I wish to begin my remarks on that subject with an apology from the Faculty Association. On behalf of the Faculty Association, on behalf of all mankind, faculty and other stakeholders, as women and men who have devoted their lives to intellectual pursuits and studying and understanding the better side of human integrity, as women and men with enlightened scruples, We collectively apologize to the students for not rushing to your defense when you came to this room at the last regular board meeting, exercising your democratic right and repeatedly pleading with the board to extend your speaking time. We sat here quietly, shamefully, bearing our heads in our hands, while the board refused to extend the speaking time for these brave students who came here to advocate for their sexual safety and bodily integrity, one of the most profound human rights. These students came to educate us by putting the spotlight on one of the most troubling issues haunting American campuses, and we remain silent. These students were not here to ask us for something novel or self-invented. They were demanding that we uphold well-established federal and state law and guidelines. They were calling upon us to take these issues seriously and recruit and hire people who are committed not only to baseline federal compliance and with laws such as Title IX and federal laws and the James Clery Act, but to hire people who have dedicated their minds and their careers to the pursuit of the best practices, community empowerment, sophisticated thinking on these pivotal issues. Embarrassingly, we have failed them since the moment they endeavored to engage us with their concerns and outrage. We have failed them by labeling them as ignorant and misinformed, and becoming immediately defensive and provincial without even meeting with them once hearing their reasons, rationale, and positions. We failed them in the very room by allowing them to be hassled and silenced by bureaucracy. To the students, please accept our sincerest apologies and Faculty Association's deepest appreciation for the example your bravery set for us all. I want to especially thank Arafa, a student who cares so deeply about her fellow students and about social justice that she came to our district to share her story. Although she did not receive the welcome she deserved by us, this first woman spoke with clarity and purpose, using the grave injustice she endured as an ignition fluid to propel the community college students movement, and joined with courageous survivors across the nation to address these issues and stare down the cultural biases and social barriers entangling sexual assault and rape prevention and fundamental principles of justice. No words can possibly describe the pain and sorrow I felt witnessing Arafa hurrying through her speech, rushed in her attempt to share tragic rape incident in Monsac and the injustice she suffered in that institution due to a completely arbitrary and uncompromising time limit set by our board. That night, I drove straight to my daughter's home at Riverside, rang her doorbell, and when she came outside, I just hugged her and squeezed her tightly, like she was my little child again, and I had rushed to protect her from the world. During those few moments that I had her in my arms, Arafa's voice and story were rushing through my head. As each moment passed, I hated myself even more for not jumping to her defense in the meeting that night. All night long, I was chastising myself and tossing and turning for not getting up in the board meeting and protecting Arafa as my daughter, praising her for her bravery, telling her she should take her time, finishing her speech, and reminding her that her words and her experience have immense value. So tonight, I'm speaking up to correct the wrong of the last meeting. I'm here to tell Arafa, you may indeed have been the victim of an awful tragedy and injustice, but in the Faculty Association book, and to many of our stakeholders, your identity is that of a brave champion of enlightenment in our district. And to all those courageous students who have been exercising their democratic rights by publicly registering their position on this matter, the Faculty Association salutes you. The point is not whether we agree or disagree with you. The point is that you have every right to exercise your democratic right. As educators, we could not ask for more alert and conscientious students to be passing through our classrooms and graduating from our colleges. You have reminded us sexual assault survivors, rape survivors, and members of our insular RCCD community are not the only ones watching us. Campuses across the nations, from Yale and Stanford to Berkeley and Brigham Young to Monsac, are being scrutinized in the midst of the campus sexual assault epidemic. You have taught us that if we think we can hide out in the Inland Empire like an infant who thinks their parent has actually disappeared in each round of peekaboo, we are not only foolishly mistaken, but we will also indeed drive this ship toward a financial and regulatory iceberg. The generations currently in leadership positions at the institution of higher education are failing the millennials in the area of sexual assault on campus, and these young people will not let them to get away with it any longer. I will give you just a few search terms that anyone here can type into Google to see the avalanche of student activism, and that even the nation's top schools are under a firestorm, finally being exposed for their sloppy practices. Just simply Google Stanford and sexual assault scandals, Brigham Young and sexual assault scandals, Berkeley and sexual assault scandals, Harvard and Title IX violations, Princeton and Title IX violations. Lastly, just this week, the previously esteemed Chancellor of UC Davis, Linda Katie, was given the axe by the California Regents. Although several issues were at play, it was evidence of act of cronyism in important hiring decisions that seem to have been the final nail in the coffin of her career at that prestigious university. These are just a few of the latest headlines all over the news and social media. If these schools are not immune to massive national student movement for sexual safety and justice, why would RCCD think it is a good idea to ignore the legitimate voice of its students? If as a shrewd business person and politician, one chooses to disregard the human impact of an educational institution's hiring decisions, then let me provide you with a few numbers to show you how fatal it is to give these positions away with a proper, without inclusive hiring process. Here are just a few of the fines schools must pay per violation of the laws I have mentioned. Each Clery Act violation is subject to $35,000 fine. In severe cases, school can lose its federal funding. Violations of Title IX for a college of our size can reach $300,000 in compensatory and punitive damage per employee bringing a successful claim. The average award in sexual assault cases against schools that go to trial is $200,000. And about 60%, that is 60% of the cases brought against schools on this issue by students, and 40% of the cases brought against schools on this issue by the Department of Education are successful. As we speak, a group of bipartisan United States senators have a bill pending before the Congress that will create a huge fine increase for schools that mishandle sexual assault claims. It is called the Campus Accountability and Safety Act, CASA. This law would increase the potential fines for Clery Act and Title IX violation from $35,000 violation to $150,000 per violation. As I said before, our students are not providing us with a fantasy list of baseless requests. They are rather simply urging us to educate ourselves about our responsibilities under massive federal and state laws in safeguarding our stakeholders' sexual safety and bodily integrity. Thanks to all the bravery, courage, and activism of Ms. Arafat and our conscientiousness students, the Faculty Association and the Chancellor have initiated a new line of dialogue on this most urgent matter. Both sides have reached a preliminary agreement on a general framework in assigning our district safety task force, which consists of representatives of all stakeholders and the Department of Human Resources. A new charge of working together to review our policies and practices under various federal and state compliance laws. especially those governing sexual assault and rape in college campuses. The two groups will also work on ways and means to raise our stakeholders' awareness on our rights and responsibilities under federal and state laws. If we indeed succeed in this novel endeavor and make our college campuses safer for our students and our stakeholders, we will all owe a lifelong collective debt of gratitude to Ms. Arafah and the courageous students who have challenged us to live up to our responsibilities as educators. Ms. Arafah and all of you conscientious students protesting tonight, you have the Faculty Association's solemn pledge that we will remain committed ensuring that our compliance division is not simply a storage unit to house the favors of friends and people in power. So I would urge you to bring your signs down, walk with your heads high home. You came here and you accomplished a lot more than you bargained for. And we are all greatly indebted to your courage and your bravery. Thank you very much.